Hello and welcome to the Gaggle Book Challenge, and if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of the Gaggle, Peter Lavelle. So, Peter, there's a story that hasn't really received very much attention in the Western media because on the face of it, doesn't seem as if it's that significant, but of course, it is kind of rather significant.
Or
Um,
being made
it's being
significant.
made significant that towards the end of 2025, President Putin signed into law that there would be a day every year set aside for the commemoration of the Nazi genocide of the Soviet peoples during World War II. And that date would be April the 19th. So, and the reasons, I think we'll come to the reason why they chose April the 19th. Now, this is was became law, I think, December the 31st of last year. And then the Yad Vashem Museum in Israel came out with a strong condemnation. You think, what's there to condemn? Well, what's there to condemn is that somehow Russia was putting everybody on the same level. They were all the Soviet peoples were victims of the Nazi genocide. And this, of course, is anathema to obviously Yad Vashem, but also to many in the Holocaust industry, which is that somehow what happened to the Jews has to be isolated from everything else. That's a special case, and you can't just put it all into the same basket.
An example of this, the Holocaust being conducted in Gaza. They do not accept that. The
No, no,
Holocaust,
no, no.
that is a red line for them. And people use the term the Holocaust against the people of Gaza intentionally is to mock this exclusivity of it. The question shouldn't be Russia's putting all peoples on the same level. The fact of the matter is that the Nazis put all of the peoples of the Soviet Union on the same level. Okay,
Right.
that's what matters here.
That's right. But what I think is very important that this is a long-standing
Right.
issue that was raised originally against the Soviet Union, suggesting that the Soviet Union was either anti-Semitic or was indifferent to what happened to the Jews, because the Soviet Union never distinguished what happened to the Jews from what happened to everyone else. And when you think about the numbers, the sheer scale
Sheer
of
numbers.
the losses that the Soviet Union suffered, which is 27 million, then you say, well, why would we sort of isolate just one group of people that they have a privileged status, and but what about the other 24, 25, 26 million? What does one group of people so it was always and this came up on the issue of Babi Yar and everything. Well, why doesn't the Soviet Union sacralize Babi Yar? We said, well, as far as the Soviet Union was concerned, what happened at Babi Yar was a massacre that of the type that the Nazis had conducted throughout the Soviet Union during their invasion. So this is a long-standing issue, and now it's come up, and now, of course, as is Russia's wont, and particularly as is the wont of Maria Zakharova, Russia made a kind of a response to Yad Vashem. So let's just first of all look at the this piece of the legislation. It was signed at the end of the 2025, see December the 29th, and this is a new commemorative date established, April the 19th, Day of Remembrance for the victims of the genocide of the Soviet people. And they say here, they say this is April the 19th. And then the foreign ministry provided this explanation why April the 19th. They say that they signed this decree, April the 19th, So the authors of the initiative proposed commemorating the victims on April 19th, as on this date in 1943, the first legal act was issued that officially documented the Nazis' policy of exterminating civilians in the occupied territories. And then this is the decree. That's the decree of the Presidium of the Soviet Union. And then decree number 39 laid the legal foundations for bringing to justice Nazi criminals and their accomplices, including Italian, Romanian, Hungarian, and Finnish military personnel. Materials collected during investigations conducted on the basis of decree number 39 formed the key part of the evidentiary base at the Nuremberg Tribunal and then the Khabarovsk trial and other judicial proceedings against war criminals. So that's why they say April 19th. And then here's they quote Putin, July the 20th, 2020, the Nazis plan to colonize the Soviet land, to kill or turn into slaves, and to take away the languages and culture of all who lived here, the Slavs and the people of other ethnicities. These crimes of the Nazis and their minions and the genocide against the peoples of the Soviet Union do not have a statute of limitations. This assessment must remain firm in our legislation and in the international law system. So that's the statement from the Russian Foreign Ministry, which just a few days ago. And then here is Yad Vashem, and this is the statement they issued. The Russian Federation's decision to establish an annual National Day of Remembrance commemorating the Nazi genocide of the Soviet people, while omitting any mention of the heinous crime of the Holocaust perpetrated specifically against the Jewish people, is yet another distortion of history. So they said that of Soviet people. They didn't say, "Oh, who cares about the Jews?" They didn't. That's not what they said. They said that the genocide of the Soviet people. They said, "Oh, well, wait. You didn't bring up that there should be specifically about the Jews and everybody else." I love this, yet another distortion of history. Yad Vashem.
Who liberated the death camps? Oh, that's
yes.
The Red Army did. Is that a distortion?
Yes, exactly. Yad Vashem condemns this latest attempt to manipulate the historical facts of Nazi persecution for current political purposes.
But Yad Vashem is manipulating and distorting history.
Exactly. So look, they chose to step into this because there's nothing in anything that in that commemoration that should in any way be seen as belittling the Jews, dismissing anything that was done to the Jews. They chose to make this an issue. How dare you talk about the Soviet people? You talk about there's a special group of people you elevate above everyone else.
Well, first of all, it's immoral. It's ahistorical. It's special pleading.
Right. Yep, that's right. And then this new Russian law effectively erases the distinct Jewish dimension of the Shoah.
No, it doesn't. It's part of the mosaic of the genocide of tens of millions of civilians.
Right.
It encompasses the Shoah is within this
within it
this construct here.
That's
so there's nothing it's missing.
That's right.
Or erasing.
Yeah. Despite the fact that they were the primary target of Nazi genocide.
So that Nazi Germany in June of 1941 invaded the Soviet Union. The primary target of that invasion was the destruction of the Jews. Well, you can make that argument, but there's not much evidence there.
I don't think so. You're absolutely right. Yeah, you can make that argument, but what's the evidence that was the primary target of the Nazi genocide? And again, you look at the numbers. I mean, just the number, how many were killed, what proportion of that were Jews? You say, well, actually, it was kind of a small proportion, significant, but nonetheless a small proportion. So the overwhelming majority of those who were the victims of the Nazi genocide were Slavs. While indeed millions of non-Jewish citizens of the Soviet Union were killed during World War II, many of them in targeted murders, as well as victims from other countries of the Holocaust, from its inception in 1933 through what the Nazis referred to as the final solution, is defined by the comprehensive campaign aimed at the total eradication of Jewish existence and the murder of 6 million Jewish men, women, and children, and as such must be recognized and remembered. Well, that's you can argue that and make that, but you can also argue that the Nazi plan was also to eliminate Slavs completely off the face of the earth.
Sure.
Yeah. So you can say, oh, well, it was
And
only the Jews.
they were pretty
Well,
good at it too. They were
yeah.
pretty good.
So to say, oh, well, it was only because of us. It's just amazing the kind of arrogance
It's
that is involved here.
well, what it does is, and it's so dismissive towards for those that have never been here or never lived here, the 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 Holocaust against the peoples of the Soviet Union, it's still a wound. It's
Right.
still here with us. You see it everywhere. It's embedded in the culture. And for some people to say that their suffering is special and the sufferings of others are less, well, that's just it's not historically sound. It's very arrogant and even racist, I would say.
That's right. That's right. So I mean, the arrogance is in entering into something that you haven't actually been invited. This is in Russia. This is just Russia. Russia is setting aside a day for the commemoration of the genocide of the Soviet people. They didn't say anything about Israel. They didn't say anything about the Jews. They weren't imposing anything on anyone else. Yad Vashem chose to step in and say, how dare you do this? Because we're only going to allow you to bring up the genocide of the Second World War. We're only going to allow you if you elevate the Jewish Holocaust above anything that was done to anyone else. Only
Well,
then are we going to allow you to commemorate this.
that's just arrogance. I mean, Russia will decide how it is commemorated and how it is defined. Okay, no organization or a specific group of people have the keys to the kingdom to determine this. Here, the arrogance of no, we're going to interpret your history for you.
Right.
We're going to interpret and describe your suffering
Right.
compared to the suffering of others.
Right.
Well, that's a political agenda. That's not an historical one.
Right. Exactly. And then the Russian law ignores that the designated Memorial Day, April the 19th, has profound significance in Holocaust remembrance as it marks the start of the famous uprising of the Jews in the Warsaw Ghetto, one of the most powerful symbols of Jewish resistance during the Shoah.
You can take any day and say it has designated as a,
Yes.
significant day. You can do that all you want.
I absolutely
Okay.
agree. Absolutely.
You can do that
Pick
all you
any
want.
day. Exactly. Oh, this is the start of the uprising of the Warsaw. Oh, well, okay. Well, the Russians have, they've said, well, April the 19th. They've explained why they chose April the 19th. Okay, so okay, you've chosen that, and they've chosen
And,
that.
and,
That's it.
and the way the Russians chose the date, it was defined in real time
Right.
during the course of these events. Okay,
Right.
so you can agree or disagree to take that date. You had to put it somewhere, okay, and there was already a historical predicate for
Right.
it, and the Russians expanded upon it,
Right.
which I find perfectly acceptable. I mean, I don't have any argument one way or another. Okay, that's how you decided. Okay, fine.
Right. That's right. Anyway, then the ambassador of Russia to Israel wrote a letter that was quite conciliatory, So this is the ambassador of Russia to Israel, Anatoly Viktorov. He sends an open letter to the chairman of the Yad Vashem directorate, and Mr. Danny Dayan said, and then, dear Mr. Dayan, I was upset and felt distressed to have read Yad Vashem, the World Holocaust Remembrance Center's post on X regarding the Russian Federation's decision, and then goes on. The above-mentioned statement contains accusations by Yad Vashem in a distortion of history and an attempt to manipulate historical facts of Nazi persecution for current political purposes. So I consider these accusations completely groundless and categorically repudiate them. In Russia, we mark meaningful days of our calendar in the way we find necessary.
The way we find necessary.
Exactly, exactly. A newly established day of remembrance on April the 19th refers to this day in 1943 when the first legal act was issued to punish those responsible for policy of targeted extermination of the civilian population, among whom were Soviet citizens of various ethnic and religious backgrounds. And then in this context, it is worth reminding that the Russian Federation was among those who initiated and co-sponsored the UN General Assembly Resolution 67 designated the International Holocaust Remembrance Day. As you know, the day is marked by commemorative events and actions in many countries, not least Russia. And then I believe it is the common interest of the Russian and Israeli peoples to preserve our shared historical memory in the events of World War II and the Great
There you go. Isn't the thing? It's up to the point of being pathetic. Preserve our shared historical memory. Well, what? Wow, that's breaking bread with the guy. Okay, I mean, everybody suffered. It was a horrific event in modern history. Shared historical memory.
Right.
A real diplomat here.
That's right. But the interesting thing is they're not going to do it. You can be conciliatory
No,
to them.
George,
they're not going to respond.
no. This is going to go on. This is not going to burn out for a while. Because
right.
when you offer conciliation, that's when they say you're weak.
That you're weak, exactly. And then rather than disseminate unfounded allegations related to such tragic and sensitive issues as mass killings and other crimes committed by the Nazis and their collaborators against the heroic multinational Soviet people who made the decisive contribution to the victory over Nazi Germany and the end of the horrors of the Holocaust.
Well said.
That's right. To this end, I and the embassy's team remain open for cooperation with Yad Vashem, as has been the case for many years. And now, here is Zakharova. She said this is the other day. Zakharova, as we'll see, is nowhere near as conciliatory. She has a waspy tongue to her. And she says, so here's the question she was asked. The World Yad Vashem issued a statement concerning Russia establishing Day of Remembrance, in which it accused our country of distorting history and manipulating the facts, as it ignored the horrendous crime of the Holocaust targeting Jewish people. What do you make of it? And then she says, to put it mildly, we are surprised to see such strong determination on the part of the center in making far-fetched complaints about Russia allegedly distorting history at a time when Russophobic regimes in Poland and the Baltic states, as well as the Kiev regime, to name a few, have unleashed a genuine war of many years on monuments of the Red Army.
Wow. Yeah. Go girl. Go girl. Well, no, I mean, Zakharova, she would agree with George and I. Talk about distortions. I mean, the way it's been going for the last 2 decades at least is that the Soviet Union and Nazi Germany were on the same side.
Yes.
That is an agenda that is being pushed.
That's right. That's right. And the agenda is, and one truly is increasingly to suggest that the war was won by the British and the Americans. Maybe Russia contributed a little bit here and there, but the British and the Americans won that war. And that's just said now, just automatically. People just say it without even thinking about it.
Kaya Kalas.
Yes, yeah.
The Soviet Union, it was in the war. That's something new. I'm paraphrasing.
Oh, that's exactly. That was something new. Yeah.
That's something new.
Didn't know that.
Well, I wonder if anyone in her family fought with the Nazis.
There have been a lot of, I've read a lot of speculation. I don't want to give credence to it because I simply don't know. But there have been speculation that,
Well, it's a fair question.
exactly.
I mean,
What did
there are
her
certain
grandfather do in the war?
yeah, well, there are certain people. Their character is they go with the flow. The
Right.
Nazis, okay, all right, and the communists, oh, okay, I'll go with them too.
Yeah.
Okay,
And now it's the EU. Yeah. Yeah. No,
now it's the
yeah.
EU.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Exactly. And then she goes on, we are talking about physical destruction of memorials of Soviet soldiers who, as Yad Vashem representatives may recall, saved Jews who survived the Holocaust. Hundreds of thousands of Jews fought alongside Red Army soldiers of other ethnicities whose feet Europe is now erasing. Back then, they did not think in terms of ethnicity, nor did they form battalions, groups, or units based on ethnicity. Nope. That wasn't an issue back then, but each of them had their own ethnic background. This is a well-known fact. So she's just, reiterating the
She's
Soviet
on
attitude. Yeah.
she's on fire. Oh,
And then she goes on, many relatives and descendants of the Red Army soldiers who rest beneath demolished monuments now live in Israel and other Western countries. They mention the Holocaust often, but for reasons unknown, do not react to the demolition of the monuments to Red Army soldiers. Reasons unknown, they don't seem to say anything about the demolition of monuments to Red Army soldiers. These are not just monuments to Red Army soldiers, they represent the history of those events in material form. It's very important to point this out. I mean, because Zakharova brings this up a lot, but it is absolutely outrageous that the desecration of these Red Army monuments. Not they don't do it in Hungary, but they do it in many other countries,
right.
and that was the minimum that Gorbachev asked during that shamefaced withdrawal from Eastern Europe. Well, at least look after the monuments and the cemeteries. After all, millions died liberating you from the Nazis. You want to at least preserve their memory. Nope, they didn't even
The
do that.
polls have been particularly horrific in the Baltic states in this regard here. I I just want to say here as a sidebar, George and I we do a lot of podcasts, and George does his fantastic job with the slides and all that. But very, very rarely do we ever come across a perfect 10. Okay. Because, oh, well, yeah, Peter and George, all they do is rag on people all the time. Okay, it's an argument you can make. Okay. But this is prose. I mean, I think she's speaking. This is not written. Okay.
She's speaking, yeah. No,
This is a perfect 10. Okay. I'm very impressed.
no, that's right.
Meaning I couldn't even come near to doing it better than this.
No, that's right. It's not easy to do. It looks easy, but it's not.
No, it's not.
Yeah. Yad Vashem showed no signs of outrage when a monument to fallen Soviet soldiers was destroyed in the Polish town of Malbork in 2022, with a high-ranking government official in attendance. Yet Red Army soldier Alexei Belsky from the family of the legendary Jewish partisans was among those who died in those battles. So as a Jew, he died in those battles. I didn't hear Yad Vashem say anything about this. I just like that, when you really just take on, Yad Vashem, which is always treated with this piety. Didn't hear anything from Yad Vashem. We have numerous examples like that for Yad Vashem. For a long time, we've been maintaining an electronic map of demolished monuments. We are operating not just as a foreign ministry, but in this case also as part of a Russian society at large within the borders of our country and in collaboration with our compatriots residing abroad. This is a global civic movement, and our diplomats are part of. I encourage Yad Vashem officials to visit. There's a website where, alongside the Russian Military History Society, we maintain a register of destroyed Soviet monuments. And then, on many occasions, perhaps they have forgotten, but I'm here to remind them of it. We encouraged, perhaps they have forgotten, but I'm here to remind them of it. We encourage the Israeli Foreign Ministry to join our démarche protests and efforts to preserve memory and monuments. They never responded. They, including Israeli officials, kept drawing lines to carve up historical memory. I'm not talking about the people. In this respect, we sense the support provided by Israeli citizens. We are working as a team with our compatriots in Israel, but officials and institutions keep turning a blind eye to our efforts. And then, one cannot deny the fact that the genocide of the Soviet people during the Great Patriotic War in 2005, Russia was among the initiators and co-sponsors of the UN General Assembly Resolution 67, which established January the 27th as International Holocaust Remembrance Day. Please keep in mind the way this resolution and other UN documents define the Holocaust. I hope our Israeli partners remember that and why this particular date has been chosen. On that day, the surviving prisoners of the Auschwitz-Birkenau concentration camp were liberated by the Red Army.
Yep.
The very same Red Army, the monuments to which are being demolished in Western Europe. We have never heard a word from Yad Vashem, Israeli embassies, consulates, permanent missions, the Israeli government, the foreign ministry, or other public organizations after these monuments had been demolished. Our compatriots are outraged, but Israel's officialdom remains silent. And don't lecture us on which holidays we should mark. We operate on the premise that preserving historical memory is a serious matter. Without a doubt, this serves the common interests of the people of Russia and Israel.
Well said.
Yes.
Well
and then so to reiterate, I mentioned the demolition of yet another monument in Teplice, the Czech Republic today, on December the 15th, 2025, so that's a few weeks ago. A monument dedicated to the Red Army soldiers in the Memorial City Park was leveled. This act of sacrilege began on May the 7th. We now have a chance to hear what Yad Vashem has to say on the matter.
I'm so glad that you used the word sacrilege, because that's the level where it is. Okay.
Now, but I want to. This is not the first time that Zakharova addressed this issue. So she did it in 2024, because what happened then, this 21st of January 2024, is that was when the genocide case was filed against Israel by South Africa, and Germany elected to essentially represent Israel. That we're going to defend Israel from these charges, and that really just got Zakharova in a rage. You know, I mean, he said that Germany, of all people, just is going to now represent Israel.
Yeah, well, it sounds like passing the baton, if you know what I mean.
Exactly. And so here she is. Question: what would be your comment regarding the statement released by the government of Germany on its intention to take a stand against the Republic of South Africa, which has instituted proceedings at the ICJ accusing Israel of perpetrating genocide against the Arab population in Gaza Strip? And then she says, by acting this way, German political elites seem to have caused Israel more harm than good. In the corresponding government statement, Berlin used language which reads, in view of Germany's history and the crime against humanity of the Shoah, thereby positioning itself as an expert in committing mass atrocities and exterminating people. And then what about the crimes against humanity perpetrated by Germany against other nations, ethnic groups, and peoples during World War II? Very, very important. Nobody ever addresses that. Nobody ever asks that question. Oh, well, you know, Germany just, we have a special responsibility because of the Holocaust. And then but we don't have any responsibility for anything else that we did, all the other peoples that were destroyed. And so anyway, she goes on. It seems that Germany has once again forgotten that under this UN General Assembly resolution and several other instruments, the Holocaust is defined as the persecution and mass extermination of peoples representing various ethnic and social groups by the Nazis. So if we look at that, this is the resolution. And what she's referring to is reaffirming that the Holocaust, which resulted in the murder of 1/3 of the Jewish people, along with countless members of other minorities, will forever be a warning. So yes, they mention the Jewish people, but along with countless members of other minorities. So, you know, you can interpret it in any way you want, but you can certainly
Sure.
say that this mentions that the Holocaust does not specifically identify just the
Well,
Jews
I mean,
as the only victims.
it could have easily been rebalanced. It could have been against countless members of minorities, including the
Right.
Jewish people.
Right, exactly. No, that's right. You're gonna certainly argue it. Um,
I can live with this language.
I can live with it as well, but what's interesting is that nobody really looks at the resolution, and therefore it's assumed that, of course, the resolution only identifies the Jews as the victims of the Holocaust, which is not the case. Anyway, we can see that Germany has chosen a different path in dealing with its past. Just like 80 years ago, Berlin has once again opted for dividing people on ethnic grounds, albeit on a new, more sophisticated level.
Ooh, that's a home run right there.
Exactly. Let me give you several examples. You'll think, oh, good. Let's have several examples. Berlin has persistently refused to pay compensation to people of non-Jewish background who lived in Leningrad during the siege. No compensation. It believes that Russians, Belarusians, Ukrainians, Finno-Ugric people, Armenians, Georgians, Moldovans, and many others are not entitled to receive money from the German government.
And it's important to point out that the 900-day siege of Leningrad what had the intent of extermination of a civilian
Yeah,
population.
yeah,
There's no denying that.
yeah. That's right. We spoke out publicly many times to awake the international opinion to this new kind of racial segregation, which is an outrageous fact. Leningrad suffered a tragedy with the city having to endure this terrible siege for over 800 days. We will be marking 80 years since its lifting on January the 27th. So that's, back when this was that was last year, 24. Together with the decisions adopted at the Wannsee Conference and the creation of death camps in Europe, it constitutes an important piece of evidence regarding the inhuman intentions nurtured by Nazi Germany and its allies. The German authorities opted for undermining Russia's efforts to prevent the rehabilitation of Nazism. Even before that, Germany regularly abstained when the UN General Assembly voted on the resolution sponsored by Russia on combating the glorification of Nazism, neo-Nazism, and other practices that contribute to fueling contemporary forms of racism, racial discrimination, xenophobia, and related intolerance.
And
Moreover,
and the US and Ukraine consistently have voted.
that's right, that's right. But now, of course, they all vote against it. So it used to be at least, oh, they would abstain, but now they all vote against it. Um, and moreover, Germany has been voting against this resolution since 2022, which amounts to contesting its provisions on stopping the renewed effort to glorify the Nazi movement and whitewash former SS members, including from Waffen SS, who were recognized as criminals by the Nuremberg trials. I get
No
the
one,
impression, that the Russians are slightly getting fed up with the
yeah,
Germans.
and there is not a better person to convey this than Zakharova.
Yes.
This is brilliant. I have nothing to add.
No,
Okay.
exactly. You just read this out and say, "Yep, fine, that's good enough for me." Germany has surpassed other countries in the European Union in zealously defending the Kiev regime, which has made the glorification of Nazi accomplices a key domestic and foreign policy tenet. Berlin supports fighters holding neo-Nazi torch processions and glorifying World War II era war criminals who have been borrowing their chevrons and stripes from SS divisions and decorating their military vehicles and gear with Wehrmacht symbols. These people seek to kill ethnic Russians, Russian nationals, and Russian speakers. But Berlin has been sponsoring and arming them, offering them medical services and backing them on the international stage.
Shameless.
And we have been witnessing An increase in the number of statements by German officials lately questioning whether Berlin should condemn its Nazi past. And then this is still Scholz. Federal Chancellor Olaf Scholz publicly said that Germany and Ukraine's neo-Nazi regime were on the right side of history. I don't remember him saying that,
I
but
don't remember that
yeah,
either.
but maybe something was lost in the translation, from German to Russian and then from Russian to that. So, which de facto amounted to exonerating Vladimir Zelensky's human-hating regime in its current iteration, as it seeks to reincarnate World War II era Nazi accomplices and erase the memory of those who fought against fascism. And then Annalena Baerbock proudly spoke about her forefathers falling during the siege of Königsberg. This is the way the German ruling elite understands what it means to be on the right side of history these days.
Unfortunately, because she's such a dingbat, okay? If it were any other foreign minister who said that, I would take it seriously. But does she even know what she means by that? Okay, it's hard to say.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, that's right. I mean, she doesn't quite have the malevolence
Yeah.
of the Canadian woman,
Oh yeah. Christine.
Freeland, Chrystia Freeland, because Freeland,
Oh,
of course,
she's a maniacal one. That
that's
one.
right. That's right. So when Chrystia Freeland was clapping enthusiastically for that Nazi, she knew exactly who he
Exactly.
was, and she was still not clapping enthusiastic. And then, of course, she feigned ignorance. Oh, I didn't know. Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
she
yeah.
left the room real quick.
That's right. Zelensky, who was there, he was also clapping. Zelensky knew exactly who this person was.
They just left the hot potato with Trudeau.
Now, Trudeau, he probably didn't know. Uh,
He just pivoted.
yes,
It was all Russia's fault. Okay.
yes, that's right. Yeah, yeah.
No, and Annalena Baerbock is just what we call shit for brains.
Right.
Sorry.
That's right. That's right. Um, and then that's Berlin persists in its refusal to recognize Nazi war crimes against our people as genocide. Russian investigative bodies and courts have compiled a wide body of evidence exposing war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide by the Third Reich troops against various regions of our country.
There's no argument there.
No,
Okay.
not at all. And then this says, July 24th, the Krasnodar Territorial Court ruled that Nazi invaders perpetrated an act of genocide in the occupied portions of the Krasnodar territory between 1942 and 43. And then during that period, and so on. And then she writes another example. Okay, so we believe that these and other similar multiple examples constitute a sufficient body of evidence for Germany to officially recognize as genocide the crimes committed by the Third Reich against our country, which Germany doesn't do. So they
I mean,
absolutely will not do.
but Germans did do it in real time
That's
when
right.
Friedrich Paulus was elevated to lead the Sixth Army. He made it very clear because the Sixth Army was committing atrocities
Right.
against civilians, and he passed. And there's a record of this.
Yep.
Okay, he made it known. I'm not involved in this. I don't want my men to do
Right.
this. We only go and attack military and military individuals infrastructure. I don't want to have anything to do with this because the Sixth Army was he admitted
Yep.
he knew he was aware of this.
Right.
Okay, so we don't when you have someone in real time saying this and it's documented, he
Right.
attested to this.
That's right.
Okay,
Well, that's the thing. You see, what happened during the invasion is that you had the army, then you had the various these special detachments that were working alongside the army, and then the special detachments would hire local auxiliaries to conduct the worst atrocities, the really horrific atrocities, burning people alive and so on. Those were done by local people, local collaborators. So there was a kind of a hierarchy. Yeah, okay, the military, the vaunted Prussian military, they didn't have anything to do with it. They knew exactly what was going on, but they wouldn't get their own hands dirty. But they would have the special detachments, and then the local auxiliaries. And so, at least, oh, well, we didn't do
Gave
anything.
them as much ammunition and vodka as they could consume.
Yeah, that's right. Um, and then all this leads to the conclusion that in the context of the ongoing proceedings at the ICJ, Berlin decided to single out the Holocaust issue by setting it apart from all other aspects of its guilty historical acts against humanity. Moreover, it refuses to view it in a holistic manner. Instead, Berlin adjusts its perspective as it deems fit to suit its momentary considerations. I think that's, and then it is shocking and appalling that the German authorities did not see any cause for remorse in connection with the main crimes perpetrated by the Third Reich on a massive scale, including the killing of 27 million citizens of the USSR. On the contrary, Berlin has once again mired itself in exterminating people in a part of Europe where 80 years ago Hitler failed in his efforts to exterminate or subdue people. This raises the question of whether Germany was sincere in its repentance and whether its denazification was effective.
Well, I don't know, maybe she's been tipped off about our podcast because George
I,
and I raised the
we, we,
same.
we repeatedly say this. We had this German, this they would piously talk about, oh yeah, these terrible things, and then turns out it was all kind of rather superficial. It's what they felt they needed to say in order for everybody to feel okay. Well, they've really they've repented. They we should be generous with them. Let them have their reunification. They deserve it. Um, and but this, of course, does raise a very interesting question. I don't know if you listened to the conversation between Tucker Carlson and Sergei Karaganov, but Karaganov did suggest that there was, Russia could well use nuclear weapons at sometime in the not too distant future. I don't know that's going to happen, but I think Tucker asked him, well, against whom? And of course, he said Germany. But there you really have a sense that this is the one country the Russians are really not going to put up with, with a lot of crap. I mean, they can put up with crap from the British, with the
Because
Americans, they give a lot of
it's their
latitude.
want to do it. That's the way they are. That's what their DNA is. Okay.
Right. And the Americans,
That
they
goes
respect
back a
the Americans.
long, long way. Long, long way.
Right. Yeah. But Germany is a special case because that really wasn't that long ago, and that you're going down this path, you start accusing Russia of this or that. That's just intolerable, and that's why when there was the talk, you remember that Merz that he was going to let Ukraine have the Taurus missile. I think that he backed away from that. I think he realized that if that happens, and if they use the Taurus missile, and with German help, Russia will retaliate against Germany. It's the one case where I think Russia would just simply say, okay, well, we're not going to accept this. We're not going to accept Germany once again launching missiles against us.
And what could, in my mind, I think you're going to agree with me. What would that retaliation look like? Destroying the infrastructure, creating the missile.
Yeah,
Okay,
I agree. Yeah,
not bombing Berlin or
yeah,
Munich.
I
Okay,
agree. I
it's
agree.
just that this installation, this installation, they'll be gone,
Yeah, I agree.
and you get uh, t 3 hours notice. You
Right.
got to get your people out because it's going to be in atoms
Yeah.
very, very soon.
Right.
It'll be dust.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I think so, and I think that's the reason why Merz seems to have decided against it. I mean, Schultz seemed to be against it from the start, but Merz kind of entertained the idea. Yeah, we're going to do this, and then they seems to have backed away. I think they know that Germany is not going to get a break from Russia.
Yeah, but see, this is what's so troublesome, because I think for a good part of our life, in studying these issues, it was kind of settled, and there was it's settled history.
Right.
Okay, well, I'm seriously rethinking all
Right.
of that right now, because is the Kiev regime a conduit to rehabilitate the Third Reich?
Good question.
And it is. I'm not going to answer that, but I think it's a question that we have to start thinking
Right.
about
That's right.
because it's very, very disturbing.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
I agree.
And the perpetrators of a genocide are hiding behind a feigned, we have come to terms that, no, it doesn't look like you've come to terms with anything.
Well, that's the thing, and that's why it's important for for Zaharova to point this out. Well, you've made a choice. You kind of selected this one group of people. Now, why would you do that? Well, because these are people with a lot of power. And so, as long as you keep them happy, that means you're going to keep the United States happy, and therefore you can just simply shrug your shoulders on everything else that you've done. So this is just opportunism, that you've seen Hitler's huge mistake. Hitler made a gigantic mistake in waging war against world Jewry, which was very powerful. So you've learned, well, that's not a good idea. We're not going to go down that path. We're going to be absolutely always in sync with Israel, world Jewry, and then we can just do whatever we like.
Well, see, George did it. There's no moral question here. I
Yeah.
thought that was all about morality.
No,
But
no,
no,
no, no.
the way George just framed that,
Yeah.
and I think he's right, is that, oh, but it wasn't wrong. He just failed.
He failed. He bit off more than he
Where
could.
are we here?
Yeah,
Come on.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right. We're not going to make that mistake again. We
There
don't.
you go. Not because it's wrong, though,
Right. Yeah.
because there's a potential to fail. Wow. What a position to be in.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just voided decades of historical thought on this. I mean, the study of the Holocaust is a huge industry. I mean, it's vast, okay? And now it's being nullified.
Yeah. 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 But
Yeah,
it's
but isn't it interesting? Russia won't single out the Jewish tragedy, but in the West, no one wants to single out the singular tragedy of the Palestinian people.
no, no, no,
It's
no, no.
very interesting. They're very selective, aren't
That's
they?
right. That's right. And the sheer sliminess of the Germans. Oh, we have to support Israel and
Why?
represent Israel before the ICJ
Why?
because of our special bond that exists between us
The
and
the bomb, it almost slipped out. The bond and the bombs.
that's
Okay,
right. That's right.
the second largest. I didn't know this before October 7th. The second largest supplier of weapons to Israel is Germany.
That's right. That's it. Yeah, yeah. And it's, oh well, and then it sounds so well. It's very
Noble, noble. Oh
exactly.
yeah.
Well, of course they have a special relationship with Israel, and of course they support Israel. I say, yeah, but that's just an opportunism. You know which side your bread is buttered, and you know that you have to keep in with the powerful people, and then you can continue with your same ambitions, your same Russophobic ambitions that you had before. But you now are in with the powerful people. You're not antagonizing those who have wealth, power, and influence. And so, they can go around and then people think that they're moral, but they're not really. No, you are not moral because you committed horrific crimes against lots and lots and lots of people, particularly in the Soviet Union. And so, I mean, the fact that Yad Vashem, why did they get involved in this? No, there's nothing in this. This is entirely a Russian thing. We're going to have this day on April the 19th for the genocide against the Soviet people. It doesn't say anything about anything. And Yad Vashem arrogantly wades in. How dare you? This is, I mean, this isn't, it's not like they're putting this forward as a UN resolution or anything. It's for us. We're going to have this a special day. How dare you? We get to decide what are special days.
Oh, and all the while, Germany gets to whitewash its the stench of genocidal murder against
Yeah,
countless tens of millions of people. Israel's helping them do that.
right, right. But it's only one step. How is it, it takes
Oh, it's not over. We're going to be talking.
one little step to say, well, the Russians are kind of savages. Hitler was kind of onto something. These are savage people. I mean, they were.
We're getting there,
We
George.
are getting there,
We're getting there step by
step by
step
step. These
by
are
step.
barbarians. Hitler was right. We need to save Western civilization from the barbarians. He just said he made this mistake about
Oh,
the Jews. He shouldn't have done that.
come on. The British intelligence service, the Germans, the French, the whole lot of them that are embedded in Ukraine, they see the Nazi salutes, they see the insignia, and what do they say? What do they do?
Yeah,
Nothing. Because is that what they really believe? The only thing Hitler did wrong was lose the war? Is that the message you're trying to convey?
yeah.
Hmm. So don't take a moral stand with me on anything,
No, no.
okay? On anything.
That's right. That's right. That's right. I mean, even that thing in the when we go back to that Canadian Parliament, that was you know, it was an open blunder, but they almost got away with it. It was only because of this one this academic in the University of Ottawa who kind of pointed this out. But oh yeah, he was just fighting against the Russians in World War II. Oh, that's okay, that's fine. Sure. That's who wouldn't want to fight against the Russians in World War II? Wasn't that a reasonable thing? So, just a minute. They were the Allies. So this guy was fighting against the Allies. That means he must have been fighting on the side of the Nazis. Whoops, that's a bit of an embarrassment. That was we sweep that under the rug. Or when Yatsenyuk, remember Yatsenyuk started saying to the Germans, "Well, you know very well what it's like to suffer under a Russian invasion." Even sort of the German journalists were a little bit, whoa, you want to be a little bit careful where you're going with that. So yeah, but you're right. Step by step, we're going to get there. I mean, there's already been a huge revision of this, rehabilitation of the sort of Nazi goal. You can't, get rid of the Hitler and all that. But the objective was correct.
He 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 made mistakes,
He
George.
made mistakes,
He
exactly.
made he was kind of extreme at times. Okay.
Exactly. It was extreme, a bit uneducated, a bit uncouth.
Yeah, yeah,
Didn't go through the formal education system, which
yeah.
would have removed some of the rough edges.
There you go. He was just a rough diamond. Yeah, that's all he was. We're mocking this narrative, but it's very real. It is happening. It's like an onion, just another very thin layer, another thin, and then you get used to it, and then you have a complete distortion,
Right.
and 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 it's something that having lived in Eastern Europe a long time, like as George now, is all of these shifting narratives and these sleight of hands. It takes away the historical record of what happened in Eastern European countries
Right.
before the war and during the war.
Right.
Okay. And because I know some Polish historians, and they know things, but it's impolite to talk about it in public. It's just impolite
Right. Right.
because because historical responsibility it's about people making decisions. And during the Second World War, as a historian explained it to me, he said the Second World Wars, many wars going on within the war
Right.
itself, and that whitewashes a lot of some really odious people
Yep.
all through Eastern Europe that thought that Hitler was the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Right. Yeah. No, that's right. And I think it's very significant because essentially what Germany is now doing is really kind of wiping the slate clean. And you say, well, okay, I mean, we got the Jewish thing. That's all. That's the only thing really we did wrong. I mean, we shouldn't have done that to the Jews. That was the only thing.
That's right.
Everything
That's
else
right.
is fine. I mean, so and look at the Russians. We had the right idea. We needed to do something about the Russians.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so that's
And
so
it's a
that
pity we didn't finish the job.
exactly. It's a pity we didn't finish the job, and that is the prevailing view. You never hear anything from any of Schultz or any of the others for any regret of what they did, in their completely unprovoked, it was an unprovoked attack on the Soviet Union. It was really unique in history. I mean, I don't think there's ever been a completely unprovoked attack without even any warning or ultimatum or anything. So, but hey, as long as we support Israel, we're good. We get to go to all the fine dinners and fine banquets and fine palaces, because we're on the right side.
You know, Saving Private Ryan. It wasn't made by mistake, okay? They even had extras that apparently they hired some extras that who were Russian, and they were caught on a microphone as it was being filmed. See, they're the bad guys. They're the bad guys. These things. A Band of Brothers, which I think artistically is a wonderful TV series, but the West won the war. That's what they want to tell you. That's what they want you to know. Okay, I think that what was that? The Gates of Stalingrad, that film that came. It was like 15 years ago. It was a really awful film because it was French and Italian. It was just really mishmash. All the weird, Scottish accents,
Right.
English accents. I mean,
Right.
it was a very strange thing. But that's an anomaly, okay? That was an anomaly, and people didn't see it. It was very expensive to make, but it didn't make an impression. And maybe because it didn't get the circulation. I don't know.
Right. No,
But,
but it's very much. You first of all have to say, oh well, first, you try to belittle the Russian victory. Oh, the winter. Oh, the win. Oh, it's the cold winter. So well,
yeah, but it was cold for the Russians too.
yeah, that's it. It's cold, and winter comes around every year. It's always cold. And therefore, it should be part of anyone's planning, if you're going to invade Russia, that it's going to get cold. I mean, it's going to happen.
Because the Russians had antifreeze.
Yeah,
Why?
that's right.
Because
Yeah,
it gets cold here.
yeah, yeah. So
Oh, and I'll tell you another thing. A Soviet soldier that suffered from frostbite was severely disciplined. And when I say disciplined, let your mind wander,
right,
okay? No soldier should be fall victim to frostbite in the Red Army. That is just impossible. We know what this weather is like,
yeah.
okay?
Right, but that's right, and then you have all the stories about, oh, the human wave. So that's the human wave thing, that they don't care about human lives. Completely made up that they don't care about human lives. And then, of course, you have the atrocities that the Red Army was perpetrating in Eastern Europe. So all the time, you're doing the utmost to belittle the Red Army effort. But you think, well, just a minute. The reason why the Allies launched their Allied invasion of Europe in June 1944 is, at that moment they knew that the Red Army was going to take the whole of it, the whole part, and they had to do something, because if they delayed it for one more year, basically Russia would have taken everything. So they couldn't delay the
Yeah,
invasion any longer.
George. Okay. I agree. They were part of the victory, but it was Lend-Lease that made the
Yes,
difference. I
exactly.
hear that
Yeah,
argument.
exactly. The Lend-Lease. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you always have yeah, the Lend-Lease, and the Arctic convoys in Murmansk.
Which were heroic.
Well, they were heroic, but
Yeah,
that
but
wasn't
did it
wasn't.
make a huge difference with the war effort?
Yeah,
No, no. What was most important was the solidarity.
yeah,
That's what was really important.
yeah. That's right.
So,
That's right.
unfortunately, George and I are going to be having this conversation again. I can
Yeah,
guarantee it. I can
yeah,
take this to the bank,
yeah,
okay? Because we've been observing this for years and years.
yep. That's right. Exactly, exactly. So, there it is. Yad Vashem. Yad Vashem goes in which supposedly, I mean, that ambassador, that Russian ambassador, well, we're on the same side, we're on the same team. Nah, we're not on the same side. We're not on the
And
same team.
because I work in media here, I come across diplomats. They are truly diplomatic in their social intercourse with people to a fault. Okay, because me when I
Yeah,
run my mouth, what about this? What did you say? Peter, calm down.
that's right. That's it.
Calm
That's
down.
it. Well, that was it. That's his job. But then Zakharova, who I think is closer to the in the engine room,
Yes.
so she gets to shoot her mouth off in the way an ambassador does not. So he writes this respectful letter. She doesn't have to be respectful, but this is a fight that Yad Vashem chose. I mean, that it was they picked this fight. This wasn't this wasn't anything anything that Russians said or anything like that. They chose to intrude on something that's just basically a local issue, which was in Russia.
But this stratagem, all it does is create anti-Semitism. Okay, that's what it does.
No,
And I think they're aware of it too.
yeah,
Okay. It's a very perverse logic. Jews aren't safe anywhere in the world except for in Israel.
yeah,
Hmm.
that's right.
Okay.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. All right. We're not done with this. We weren't going to lead with it, but we did, and I'm glad we did. Okay. Okay. Thank God for Maria. She's awesome. Awesome. Okay. All right, everybody. This is part of our wrap on Sunday night here. I don't know. There were like 40 slides. I caught it real quick. Okay. What am I getting at?
Yeah,
Well, effort was put into this.
yeah,
Effort was,
yeah.
and then George does as usual. Then he went and layered deeper at one point. He went right down there to the UN resolution.
Exactly.
Okay. Who does that? Who does that?
Exactly. That's right. And then the dogs chime in. Yeah, we do that. That's
Yeah,
what we
you
do.
see him? He's chiming in
There it
right
is.
down
Yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah. There's nothing they like more than rummaging around among UN resolutions. Yeah, yeah. We go through all the details of all the UN resolutions, General Assemblies, Security Council. We go through the lot. So if you have any, let me see, like I can see the, but yeah, that's right. So if you have any money lying around, any dollar bills, $100 bills, everything, gold coins, everything, whatever you've got, into the tip jar. Don't spare anything. We're very grateful for all of your help, friendship, and support. The more you're able to donate, the more of these videos we can make, the more we can improve the technology, and above all, we'll make the dogs feel that they are appreciated. They don't feel appreciated, so let's do it. So remember, if you like the gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon.